Wyndham Clark won the U.S. Open, but how did he do it? Did he actually win it when he didn't have his best stuff? Ooh, what about in our own lives? Are we at our best when we aren't at our best? And is it true as followers of Jesus that when we are weak, we are strong? What does it mean? Let's unpack it.
This is the Unpackin' It podcast, where we relate big sports stories to life and biblical truth. Our mission is to challenge, encourage, and inspire you to follow Jesus and become more like him with sports conversations that truly matter.
That's what I'm talking about!
Coming to you from Charlotte, North Carolina.
Hey, I just want to thank you guys one last time for being here. It's the best day ever.
Here is the president of Unpackin' It Ministries, Bryce Johnson.
Welcome to the Unpackin' It podcast, where we unpack parallels, metaphors, and topics in sports that relate to life and faith. I'm Bryce Johnson with Luke Heaton. On today's episode, we're unpacking the U.S. Open. Wait, Rory didn't win? Ricky didn't win? Wyndham Clark, out of nowhere, got the win. But how he won, especially at the U.S. Open, and what the U.S. Open is traditionally known as far as being a difficult major, he did it. And he actually shined on the holes that he had maybe a weak shot or a weak moment or a weak spot on the course. That's when he won it. And so we will unpack what one athletic article kind of revealed and made this parallel for us when on the golf side. And then for us in life as followers of Jesus, there's a great parallel for us as we think about the weak moments in our own lives, how God actually shines through and gives us the strength that we need. And so it should be a fascinating conversation. Thanks so much for being with us today, whether you're on social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube. If you're watching it, great to be with you. I actually got a couple new items for the studio. I didn't have time to put them in yet, but next week we'll debut those. But a little bit of my Father's Day gift, I guess, to myself, but to the studio. But glad to be with you. And as always, love hearing from you. Bryce at unpackingit.com is the email. And I'm wearing the shirt today, Fantasy Football Fellowship. Want to remind you that we are in the part of the summer where we are looking for churches that want to participate in Fantasy Football Fellowship. And so you can bring Fantasy Football Fellowship to your church. Let the leadership know about it. And we just want to see leagues starting, forming, and even if it's a current league, using Fantasy Football Fellowship all throughout the fall. You can find out all the details, fantasyfootballfellowship.com. And then also, once the fall hits, and even the summer too, we've got tons of content for you as an individual fantasy manager. Plus, the podcast is coming up in July. We will release new episodes. So check that out, fantasyfootballfellowship.com. We are brought to you by Sugar Creek Coffee. SugarCreekCoffee.com. My latest order is arriving today. I got the Sugar Creek Signature Blend, which is my favorite. Very delicious. And it's great because they don't roast until we actually place an order. And so we can be assured the freshest roasted coffee is delivered to our door. So I'll come home tonight with a fresh batch of Sugar Creek coffee. And so the same can happen for you. Go to sugarcreekcoffee.com, use the promo code UNPACK, and you'll save some money. Let them know that you heard about us, that you heard us here on the podcast. And so you heard about them. So sugarcreekcoffee.com, use the promo code UNPACK. All right, let's talk U.S. Open. And Luke, it was a fun Father's Day weekend. You get a little golf. It's out in LA. It was a unique country club. Some people didn't like it, but a lot of storylines there. But when you start looking at the leaderboard, it's, wait a second, we got Ricky Fowler. He's back. Where's he been? Everybody loves Ricky. Come on, this is going to be his year. And then Rory, the loyal Rory McIlroy. We got all the live conversation. Rory's been kind of the steady guy representing the PGA Tour. Be awesome to see him win. And then Wyndham Clark, steady Wyndham Clark, gets the win, 10 under which is crazy for a US Open, but really it got harder as the weekend went on. And for him to win with, par on Sunday, that was more telling of a US Open. So we'll dive into it in a deeper way. But what was your overall takeaway from the US Open?
Yeah, it was fun to watch. Yeah, definitely a higher winning score than we expected. Yeah, no, certainly there's been very hot takes about LA Country Club. Was it good? Was it bad? But Sunday it felt like this big tease by Wyndham Clark the whole day. We've got Scotty Scheffler lurking.
Yeah,
We've
Scheffler.
got Rory lurking, Ricky lurking. And then Wyndham he'd pull away a little bit, and then he'd take a few shots back. It's like, wait, is Rory going to do this? Is he going to get a major after all these years in hiatus? Is Ricky going to get his first one? Scotty's going to go for number 2, and then Wyndham would pull away again. So all afternoon, it seemed like this big tease, but overall, I mean, great tournament. We got to see a lot of great shots. I am curious, since happy late Father's Day to you. Mother's Day, we're all team Jody, celebrating Jody. You're getting the daughters around. How can we celebrate Jody? But for you on Father's Day, are you saying, hey, U.S. Open's on. Let's see how we can all support me watching that, or what's the mentality there?
What's funny is I think this is the case for a lot of guys, is you end up grilling out. Well, but then I do the work. So I'm out there grilling, and but no, it was fun. I enjoy it. It was very hot, but it was great. I was able to relax a little bit, just get a little Bryce time. This is, I mentioned this earlier, but one of my little outlets, random things about me is I like to go to antique stores. I enjoy walking around antique stores looking for sports items that might pop out of nowhere.
That's the caveat you should have led with, because I was a little concerned as you began saying this, that I like to go antique shopping. So yep. we need to lead off with, through the sports lens, I love antique shopping, because that's a no doubter. But looking for old spoons, I'm out on that.
Not so much. Little trinkets. But the funny, a lot of guys, Father's Day, it's like, oh, I'm going fishing, hunting, golfing. I like the peacefulness of walking around an antique store. Just, I don't know. It's just my random way to relax, and it's very enjoyable. I didn't find much, just a couple items for the studio. But I like the possibility. You never know what you might discover there.
Yeah.
So it was fun. But anyway, it was I had a great Father's Day weekend. Really fun. Friday to Sunday, lots of good family time and a little bit of Bryce time. So it was good. But was able to watch the US Open and really bought into this Wyndham Clark story, what he's been through off the course, and then just kind of his rise as a golfer, and then for him to win here in Charlotte at the Wells Fargo at Quail Hollow just a month ago, and then to follow that up with this big win and to hold off those 3 guys that are unbelievable studs, throwing Cam Smith too.
Yeah.
That was a big deal. But here's what I found fascinating. And so when you think about, okay, midway through Sunday, he gets a birdie on 14. He has a 3-stroke lead. Looks like he's pulling away. Well, then all of a sudden, he bogeys back-to-back holes, 15, 16. And we have seen this year after year, all of the history of golf. Guys unravel on Sunday. Guys that are new to the moment. They can't handle the pressure. They can't finish the job. And we'll see a guy who's more experienced, like a Rory, rise to the top.
And that par 3 he bogeyed is, I may have to go confirm this, but I'm pretty sure the broadcaster said that was the first bogey all day on that hole. Like, this par 3 is an easy par 3. And for him to bogey that, to your point, oh my goodness, he's absolutely unraveling, is what it seemed like.
So what ends up happening is he keeps that 1-stroke lead, and then on 17, 18, he pars. And so on one end, this isn't the type of tournament where it's all about the birdies. Maybe it was the day one, Thursday. But throughout the weekend, it was about, okay, how do you respond? How do you recover when you do have the missed shot, when you do have the surprise bogey? and you're just, you're trying to get par, you're trying to finish strong, you're trying to get it going. And so on The Athletic, there's a golf writer named Brody Miller who wrote this. This particular tournament has always been more about when you don't have it, when your driver is going wide left and your irons aren't hitting clean and you just bogeyed 2 in a row. It's the major most determined by how you respond when your ball is buried in the fescue and you are fully prepared to throw your club, of how you respond when confidence is shaken. That is U.S. Open golf. And on a Sunday in which seemingly the entire golf world pleaded for McIlroy to recover on the back nine and overtake the usurper, that's a funny word to me, the usurper Clark, the latter won. He won it by those moments in which he didn't have his best stuff. And so I love how he described, this is the U.S. Open, and this was the U.S. Open on Sunday, especially, and kind of throughout the weekend, where, okay, how are you going to handle those tough holes? How are you going to handle when you hit a weak shot? And this allowed Clark to shine. He was strong at following a bad shot, following the bad hole. He was able to, not let the pressure get the best of him, not lose his cool, not let the emotions get the best of him. And so he was able to come out on top and won his first major.
Yeah, and Brooks Koepka's talked about this too in U.S. Opens. It's not about, a birdie fest, going out and pulling away, but just hanging around. When everyone is collectively struggling, can you just hang around? Embrace, you're probably not going to shoot the lights out at a U.S. Open course, but don't shoot yourself out of it. Just hover, and then on the last day, you'll be there and you'll be able to do something potentially, which is what Wyndham did. No one was able to pull away, but who was hanging around and then could do something?
And so within the U.S. Open, you're going to have tough holes, weak moments where you just didn't hit it right, and it goes a little left, even though these were wide fairways. You go a little left, and then some of that fescue was deep. There were multiple situations for golfers that it was just like, wow, where's the ball? Like, what's going on?
Saw Dustin Johnson, who is one of the stronger guys on tour, unable to muscle out a ball from this deep grass, which was, if he's not, I'm not even moving the ball an inch. That's crazy.
It's tricky. So then how do you respond when your ball is in a spot that you didn't expect it to be in? And so as you can kind of see, this really does parallel our own lives. And a couple weeks ago, we talked about adversity. About a month ago, we talked about the weaknesses that we have in life. And so today I want to go a little bit different of a direction, and just the way that we can relate to some of these kind of phrases that sum up what Clark went through on Sunday is certain holes, he didn't have it. 2 bogeys, 15, 16, he didn't have it on those holes. It was a weak moment where your irons aren't hitting clean and it just doesn't, you're going a little left, you're going a little right. This happens to us. There are certain times where, certain days, certain weeks, certain months, where it's like, man, spiritually speaking, life speaking, I just don't have it. Like, things aren't happening. Like, what's going on? I was building a little bit of momentum and then blew it. And sometimes this is true when we're, battling through sin or patterns of sin as we're trying to, work through those things. We gain some momentum, and then all of a sudden it's 2 bogeys and we blow it. And then now we're frustrated, and now we want to, quote unquote, throw our club. And so it's in these moments, how do we respond? How do we respond when we're weak? How do we respond in the potential frustration taking over? Are we allowing our emotions to take over? Are we allowing the pressure of life to take over and derail us? Because these key moments throughout this tournament for Clark, especially on Sunday, where he could have unraveled, he didn't, because he came back strong on the next shot. And so for us, how do we respond when we're about to unravel, when things are about to go even more the wrong direction? And so that's always the option for us, the opportunity for us to go either way. And so we know what it's like to hit a horrible shot. We know what it's like to make a bad decision, fall into temptation. But when we're struggling, how do we respond?
Yeah, the U.S. Open, and even the game of golf in general, is kind of this microcosm of life. Old Bobby Jones has a really good quote talking about, in golf you get good breaks from bad shots, you get bad breaks from good shots, but at the end of the day, you just got to play the ball where it lies. And that's absolutely true of the U.S. Open. Man, I hit a really good shot and ended up being 3 inches deep in rough that I have no chance at making birdie now. Or, man, I thought the ball landed in the fairway. Why am I now having an impossible shot in a greenside bunker? The U.S. Open causes these things. To your point, you think you're building momentum, you get a bad break. There's all sorts of things that happen. The U.S. Open kind of can be this imagery of what we experience in life. On the reality of life, we get a lot of bad breaks. There's a lot of difficult circumstances. There's a lot of things where we think we're gaining momentum, and then the next 3 holes, figuratively speaking, we take steps back and we lose shots, and it can be discouraging. But thankfully we have God's word that directly encourages us with these things.
Absolutely. So as followers of Jesus, how do we make the most of being in the rough, and how do we keep going after losing a stroke, and how do we respond when our confidence is shaken? You face that tough day, that tough hole. It's like, I just don't have it. I don't have the confidence. I just feel so weak, and we just don't have our best stuff. It's like, man, I don't have my best stuff. And here's what I believe is the answer in all these situations. It's pointing to our weakness and our brokenness, and we just admit it. We admit that we are weak. We admit that we are broken, and we acknowledge our need for God's strength to take over, and we surrender to him. And so when we do blow it, when we realize just how, we just don't have it. We don't have the best stuff. As much as we can try to muster up in our own limited ability, we don't have enough good stuff. We don't have enough best stuff all the time. We're weak. But the good news is we tap into the power and the strength of Christ. And so when we surrender to him, we have access to this power. We talk about it all the time on this podcast because I'm passionate about it, because it's available to us. And so let's dive into what God tells Paul in 2 Corinthians 12, 9, and 10. This is the Amplified Version. He says, my grace is sufficient for you. My loving kindness and my mercy are more than enough, always available, regardless of the situation. For my power is being perfected and is completed and shows itself most effectively in your weakness. And so going back to the parallel in golf, it was in those certain holes where he was weak. Wyndham Clark was weak, that he showed his strength to be able to keep going. And so that's, we're talking golf and all that. I think he might actually be a believer as well. But as we talk about our own lives and the reality of what we go through, day to day in this human weakness, it's actually a good thing. We embrace it. Just like we talked about embracing adversity, we embrace our weakness, because in our weakness, we're actually strong. And actually, with God's grace, we're able to do what needs to be done. We're able to get through. We're able to bounce back. We're able to remain steady. We're able to respond to pressure, not our own ability, but in his strength working through us, his power working through us.
Absolutely. And this is such an important reminder, because if we really believe that God's grace is sufficient for us, then the flip side must also be true. We must believe that we are insufficient. And as followers of Jesus, it's very easy to say, I absolutely believe God's grace is sufficient for me. Of course. But then in our day-to-day lives, we operate as if we are sufficient. But if God's grace really is sufficient for us, we must also acknowledge I am insufficient. I cannot climb my way ultimately, I cannot climb out out of the problem of sin, and God had to save us through sending his son. But in the day-to-day stuff too, in handling external difficulties that just happen to us in a fallen world, climbing our way out of that, we can't do that in our own strength. We can't possibly defeat patterns of sin and sin struggles in our own strength. We must come to the end of ourselves. And it's a gift from God for him to show us that, for him to show us our own weakness. Because then it's in acknowledging our own weakness, we're able to be strong because now we're united to God's strength. And it's this interesting paradox, it feels like, of how can I be strong when I'm weak? It's because when we're weak, we actually tap into real strength, because we don't have real strength. We have apparent strength that we convince ourselves, no, I'm pretty strong. Oh, I can do that. I can endure. But the reality is we can't. So when we come to the end of ourselves, we're now able to be strong because it's not our own strength or our false strength working. It's God's.
Amen. So as we continue in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, Paul then responds, therefore, I will all the more gladly boast in my weaknesses so that the power of Christ may completely enfold me and may dwell in me. So I am well pleased with weaknesses, with insults, with distresses, with persecutions, and with difficulties for the sake of Christ. For when I am weak in human strength, then I am strong, truly able, truly powerful, truly drawing from God's strength. And so here's the reality. Believe it or not, we are at our best when we aren't at our best. For when we are weak, then we are strong. Because when we walk around thinking, "Oh, I got this. I'm the best. I'm awesome. I'm going to be great." We're not actually at our best because we're just operating in our own strength. And that's limited. You can only do so much. But when we realize and acknowledge, oh, I am weak and I need you, God. I need you to come in to me, to the situation, to reveal your power, to show your glory, and to enable me and equip me to keep going. And you shine through. And so I think it's just amazing that he meets us in the midst of our weakness. And, parallel it back to the golf, our weak holes, the holes that we're weak, the moments that we're weak, when we find ourselves in a tough spot, when we find ourselves in a weak spot. It's in these moments that we actually become strong. There's an opportunity for him to come in and fill those holes with his strength. And so it's realizing that when we don't have our best stuff on our own, that's when we actually are really victorious, because then our victory isn't based on what we can do, but it's what Jesus did on the cross, and then what he continues to do in our lives as we move forward in victory.
Yeah. And, like you said, Wyndham Clark showed his strength by enduring with his weakness. He showed some weak shots, some weak moments, but he continued to endure, continued to go, continued to push forward, and he won. And ultimately, the parallel isn't perfect, because how we're able to endure isn't by our own strength, but God helps us endure because we're weak. When we come to the end of ourselves and we see our weakness, God's strength carries us forward. And it's an important reminder that, a lot of these external things we face that are really difficult to endure, God often works in transformation rather than substitution. Then instead of just taking it away, sometimes he does, but many times God, rather than just removing the difficulty, removing the rough off the course, so to speak, he's going to give us the strength to actually endure and to be transformed, relying on his strength, rather than, I'm just going to make the course easy now. No, the course is difficult. Life is really difficult in a fallen world, but it's God's strength we tap into to help us endure, which is encouraging that we're not left on our own. God doesn't bring us to the end of ourselves and says, all right, see ya. No, he shows us, you are weak. You are far more weaker than you think, but the good news is I desire to give you my strength. It's not a burden for God to give us his strength. He is eager to give us his strength, eager to carry us forward.
And it's at its best in our weakness. So when we're not at our best, we're actually at our best because we're relying on God's stuff, not our stuff. Because our best stuff is still never enough, to really last and sustain. Yeah, we can drum up enough to get us through for a little while, but ultimately, in order to really endure, like you're talking about, it's we must rely on his strength. And so one more thing from The Athletic, Miller wrote this: Clark's entire career is about finding somewhere to land when you're spiraling, making him an ideal fit for the major where it matters how you play when you don't have your best stuff. And so, we can relate to when life is spiraling and things are difficult, and we're coming off of a mistake, a missed shot, and man, I'm just not feeling it. And I don't feel God's presence, or I just don't know what's going on. I just feel so weak. I'm worn out. I'm burned out. I'm feeling this or feeling that. And when we just come before the Lord in surrender and say, I need you. I can't keep going. I can't do this on my own. Things are spiraling. I don't have my best stuff, but I need your I need your best stuff. I need you. I need all of your strength and all of your power. And so I very much relate to this, and I find myself in this spot often because life is just so hard, and I can't do it on my own. And so it's just every time we're in these moments, it's just a reminder of I need God's strength every single day. Every single day.
Yeah, I mean, as Christians, we all deal with this, but the past couple of years, God's shown me my tendency to want to rely on my own strength, and his reminder to me constantly through his word and through other Christians speaking into me is, you never had to have your best stuff in the first place. The idea of God, I don't have my best stuff, is true, and we never had to have our best stuff because what we think is our best stuff doesn't count for anything. Like God's best stuff, God's stuff is what counts, what carries us forward, what actually has power and strength.
His grace,
and it's been helpful for me the past, especially year and a half, 2 years of continuing to come to the end of myself, especially in the day to day, on how can I rely and not tap into God's strength as some force, but come to the end of myself and acknowledge I am weak. How can I daily be intentional about relying on God's strength rather than getting into this pattern of relying on my own strength, which is easy for me to do. And then when something difficult happens, I've been relying on my own strength. So then that's my first response. And it's awful. It doesn't work out for me. But if I can have this intentional daily, finding small ways in the day-to-day to rely on God's strength, then when these bigger things happen, it's like, wait, no, of course I'm going to be okay because I've been on day-to-day relying on God's strength. So I know I can trust it. So when bigger things happen to me, or there are more difficult things I need to endure, of course God's strength is getting me through this. And I have the confidence in that because I've been applying it daily by God's grace and his spirit. But it can be a spiritual discipline as well to really consciously think about relying on God's strength. It's not just something that happens to you, I guess. Like the same thing with reading God's word. It's not just something we wake up and do. We have to be intentional about it.
My last thought is I think the flip side is we pretend to be strong, and it's to our detriment that we pretend like I'm strong enough, I'm smart enough, I'm good enough, I've got this. And
your pet peeve phrase, strong Christian.
That's right. Where it's acknowledging, because I think what happens when we think that we're strong, it's like, well, I've arrived and I've got this, right? It's like I've got this. And no, we're weak. We are weak, but yet then we are strong. So in some ways, yes, we become a strong Christian, but not in our own ability. It's not based on our skill set, even as a believer.
Mhm.
It's no, we are weak and broken, yet we're being mended. We're being healed. We're being transformed. And he's doing it. God is doing that in us. And it's in the acknowledgement of how we fall short from a sinful nature standpoint, but then ongoing, just our constant need for his strength and power. And so let's walk humbly and let's respond well when we do miss shots, when we do find ourselves in the rough, and we don't respond in our own abilities, but we respond with a strong next shot because we're finding our strength from an unlimited source,
Mhm.
unlimited power, and it's available to us personally. So my yeah my tank of Bryceness is so tiny. Even that's generous. You know, I can't be tapping into the Bryceness. What is that? What is it? Where does that get me? No, no, I tap into the strength of my loving Savior and the God of
Yeah.
the universe.
It does take
So
humility. That is it seems like a prerequisite for relying on God's strength because it requires humbly saying, God, I am not enough for this. I don't have the strength. I don't have the ability. I don't have the goodness in me. I need you. And it's not even reluctantly saying it. Like we can boast about our weakness. Like the idea of rejoicing that I am weak. Again,
mm,
it's one of those tensions in scriptures. Like, how is that true? Well, it is
mhm,
true. Because like we've been saying this whole time, we should boast that we're weak because God uses weak people,
mm,
which is an amazing thing that he does. He doesn't require, all right, well, who are the strongest believers out there? Who are the strongest people out there? That's what I'm going to use. That's what I'm going to work through. No, it's
mm.
we are all weak, and God so graciously keeps us going and moves us along toward redemption and toward glory and enjoying his presence. And it's an amazing reality, but too often our pride of not wanting to acknowledge our weakness gets in the way of that.
And then the crazy thing is, then we are strong. So when we are weak, then we are strong.
Hmm.
And so we take the wrong route to get there.
Yeah.
Um, and so we think, I'm just gonna be strong. I'm gonna be strong. Okay, good luck. That doesn't last long. No, I'm gonna go through the week. Oh, then I'm strong. Weak, then strong. So it's just we got to hammer it home. We got to hammer it home. I've been a believer a long time. I continue to struggle with it because you try to do things on your own. Um, and it's like, I don't want to be weak. No, I want to be a strong Christian. So I'm going to be strong. I'm going to do this and this and this. No, no, no. I'm going to acknowledge my weakness and allow Christ's power to take over. And so let me read the verses just again so that they sit with us. Um, Paul says, I will all the more gladly boast in my weaknesses so that the power of Christ may completely enfold me and may dwell in me. So I am well pleased with weaknesses, with insults, with distresses, with persecutions, and with difficulties for the sake of Christ. For when I am weak in human strength, then I am strong, truly able, truly powerful, truly drawing from God's strength. And then we'll pop back into the Old Testament, Psalm 73:26. uh, my health may fail, my spirit may grow weak, but God remains the strength of my heart. So let's declare that today. Be encouraged by that as well. So Luke, great stuff. Happy for Wyndham Clark. Cool win. Cool story for him. We didn't even get into some of the off the course stuff that he's been through, and so yeah, a lot of cool parallels from him. But uh, life like the U.S. Open, really hard. And so how do we respond? And how do we respond in the moments when we don't have our best stuff and we lack confidence and we're not feeling it? We go to the Lord. We rely on him and he gives us the strength. Our confidence comes from him. Our stuff, the good stuff comes from him. That's what we need. That's what we need to keep walking in victory, and ultimately our victory is in Christ and what he did on the cross. And so we cling to that as well, and we're so thankful to be saved and redeemed through his blood, and so we rest in that today. And so I'm Bryce. I'm a sports fan that follows Jesus. I believe in the good news that he died on the cross for my sin, resurrected, and through faith, I've been saved by his grace. I hope that is true for you as well. I hope you'll join me as we live life as sports fans and follow Jesus together. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you next time right here on the Unpacking It podcast.